In the sweep of this section of Paul's first letter to the Corinthians, he's making a case against the division of the community into factions. These verses from the opening of chapter 4 focus on the relationship of leaders to the community, specifically church leaders. It seems clear from the passage that Paul is under some duress in his position as a leader, and he holds two distinct issues in tension. The first is the importance of the relationship between leader and community. More specifically, it relates to the binding cords within the community itself. In this, Paul speaks about the issue of trust, trustworthiness. At the same time, Paul seems to reduce the importance of the relationship between leader and community and the judgment of the congregation by placing the final judgment with God. Important and comforting as this final judgment is, and the counsel, authority, and guidance of life resting with God, the focus on trust brings the leader back to their personal integrity and quality of relationship with the community and the community's judgment of that relationship. Emerging in the field of leadership studies within the last several years is an interest in authentic leadership. Following the destruction of 9/11, the corporate scandals, market collapse, economic overreach, and risk beyond wisdom that has led to society's suspicion of traditional leadership that is affirmed in the holding of a position of power or responsibility without personal accountability, there seems to be a renewed interest in a trusting relationship to the community. In a complex social network in which leaders are often personally unknown by their constituents prior to assuming the position, it has become increasingly important that the authentic and trustworthy nature of the leader is established and demonstrated and trusted within the community. Three aspects of authentic leadership have been identified by researchers. The first is the integrity of the person within themselves. As Christians, this aspect is nurtured in the life of the Spirit. Identity of gifts, capacity for ethical judgment, openness to accountability, and a personal loyalty to the larger purposes of God makes leadership a matter of stewardship, as Paul articulates it here. Stewardship rather than a self-absorption or a self-importance that creates a divide and ignores the need for personal trustworthiness. If we ignore the need for personal trustworthiness, it seems that becomes replaced with positional power that simply commands obedience because of position. Authentic leadership is about personal integrity. The second important aspect of authentic leadership is the capacity to develop within the context of the community. Development meaning the openness to learning and growing in relationship that is critical to authentic leadership. Within my denomination, there was a historic practice of moving pastors rather frequently, and it became over time a way for career advancement. It was confusing when a person who was success in one place was moved to another and what's not so stellar in that place. Stellar in one place, not so stellar in the next. What happened? Research has exposed that oftentimes the success of one relationship, one authentic experience of leadership, was simply assumed to be transferable to the next, without an openness to forging that new trustworthiness in the new context. The inability to be open to the depth of relationship and understanding that is required when we move from one place to the next. So it is integrity within oneself, the openness to learning in context, Which leads to the third point, which is Paul's key and an admonition to leaders. That interpersonal trust between leaders and those with whom they share community, industry, vision, and hope. Trustworthiness. It is the confidence that is forged there. A confidence that looks toward the future with hope. A resilience that is able to take what comes, to learn and grow from that adversity, that suffering. Optimism, truth-telling, and commitment to one another, to the mission, the goals, the vision, and ultimately to what Christ has in store. Paul's keys: authentic leadership, committed, trustworthy, a leader within a community. And although authenticity in leadership does not guarantee that there will be no acrimony or condemnation, they do follow the path of a servant steward and the way of faithful response to our gifts and grace of God within a community. Leadership, community, faith, integrity, future.